Good afternoon, Dr. Jenna. How are you today?
I'm awesome.
Everybody, thank you for joining. If you're just tuning in, I am here today with Dr. Jenna Weeks, and we're going to review my epigenetics report. And so I have yet to see my report. So you guys are getting to see it with me at the same time. So I know I talked a little bit about this on an earlier post about epigenetics and understanding what epigenetics are and how that can help our health. And so today you're going to find out with me what my epigenetics are telling me and what I need to do differently. So having said that, Dr. Jenna Weeks is so passionate about this, and she's got a pain to passion story herself that we will share some other day, but she is so passionate about this and she's so good at what she does. And if you really want to turn your health around, you may want to pay attention and check out what Dr. Jenna Weeks has to say today.
Okay, first thing first, thank you, Catherine. The first thing I have to say is in a world where a lot of people are saying, I have the answer, and they're doing it because they want your money or they want whatever you have. Catherine and I are both ridiculously excited about this and epigenetics because it literally changes the game. It's life changing for people, and both of us cannot keep it to ourselves because it's unfair to do so. So that's why we're doing this today, is because we're just like, oh my gosh, you see it, I see it. This is life changing. Other people need to see this. They need to know that this is available to them so that they don't have to suffer anymore in the dark alone and keep going to practitioners over and over and over again and not getting results. The other thing that somebody said to me the other day, Catherine, which I shared with you a little bit about, was that I had a couple people on, and I'll share this post later, that the guy was blown away. He was just like, you could see it on his face. He's like, how come I've never heard of this before? Like, how come no one told me about this? Like, how come no one's doing, like, why not? He said, I've been to so many practitioners. He's like, I've had needles put in me. I've had seeds. I've had like energy clearings. I've had like, doctors and, IVs and you name it, all these things and supplements out the wazoo. And he said, but nothing has been based on me,
Right.
on my own internal blueprint. And this is what epigenetics does for us, is that it gives us the specifics about what your specific body needs to be at its most optimal place, and the things that could be holding you back from that you don't even know about, and then also the things that you can have control over prevention in the future. So without further ado, let's kind of get into it. So I'll kind of orient you to this stuff, Catherine. So basically, these are the different subheadings, and we're going to kind of go through. And when I go through this with you, what we're going to do is afterwards, I'm going to send you a sheet, and the sheet's going to say, this is the mutation that you might have. This is what it means and what it equals. And then this is the support. And then this is what you would take or do. So first off, we'll go down through. So this is kind of someone's report. This is what it looks like. These stars are the ratings that tell us a little bit about the science that's behind all of this. So you can see some of them have more, which means that there's been more research into understanding that these are actually a thing that really affect people's health. That's supplement recommendations. So this is what it looks like. This is something that's really important that I want people to understand, is this is the synopsis of everything that you might have going on inside of you. And you can see that there's a whole bunch of exclamation marks. And whenever people see this, they tend to freak out and go, oh my gosh, is there something wrong with me that I have so many exclamation marks? And no, there's nothing wrong with you. This is super normal. Most people have at least 10, if not 15, if not 20 little mutations in them. And so basically the way that I like to describe this to people is, people think that when you do genetics that you're going to be doing, like the big bad hitters, like cancer, Parkinson's, breast cancer, like these sorts of things. And that this is inevitable. If you have this in your genes, you're going to get this. So that's what I like to call like the foundation of the house. You can't quite change the foundation, but what happens on top of that, you can change. You can change the siding, you can change the bricks. And so the epigenetics are like the little bricks. and there's a whole bunch of them. And those little bricks might have a little corner chipped off one of them. And so it becomes a little less functional. And so that's the structure of your body. And if those little bricks are a little chipping, then you can start to see some problems. So this is where this comes in. So this is just the overview. If you ever are curious in the future, like, what did I have again? What does it mean? You can go back here and just kind of review. And then we'll go down a little further. So this is where we get into all this stuff. And we're going to talk about what the things are and what they mean and what you can do about them. And so, as with epigenetics, not everybody that has a marker for something will be actually activated. So what we're going to do, Catherine, is we're going to go through and kind of talk and see, do you have these certain symptoms that would go along with if this one wasn't working as well as it should? So it's kind of like a light switch. You have it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the light switch is turned on.
Gotcha.
And then something that I did want to just touch base on before we start is this idea of how the body actually works in terms of pathways. Okay. So you've seen The Price is Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you've seen the giant Plinko board?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is your body. Okay. Like if somebody had told me before I went to med school that this is what it looked like, I would have had a way better, easier time. So basically things come in the top and it filters all the way down through. And then you get to an inevitable end and something is made. So that's kind of how your body works. So I'll give you an example. I mean, here, this is a great example. This is your first one. Okay.
Right.
So this is a vitamin A pathway. So the vitamin A in the form of beta carotene is supposed to come in. It's supposed to go down through. Something gets added to it along the way and it turns into active vitamin A. And at the end, that's what you get, active vitamin A, and it does a job in the body. So for you, you have a little bumper in the way. So now that vitamin A doesn't get made,
Gotcha.
right? So when we have bumpers in the way, we can either have something doesn't get made, or it could shunt over somewhere else, something else gets made that we don't want. So there's two kind of variables. So for this one, it just cuts off and just you don't make active vitamin A in the amounts that your body needs. So what this looks like for people is they're going to have dry skin, cracked lips on the corners of the lips, or cracked lips, constantly chapped lips, dandruff, cracked heels, hands, fingers, blindness, night vision deficit, anything like that. So is any of those kind of, or acne or skin issues, psoriasis, eczema, that kind of stuff, is any of those kind of pop up for you?
The only one that does for me is the night driving.
Yeah. Okay. And has that gotten worse over time?
It has been, yeah, especially in this past year, even though I had my eyes tested and everything seems to be fine. At nighttime, I'm struggling, but everything else, I mean, I get chapped lips when I'm out snowshoeing for too long without my, lip gloss on or whatever. But other than that, the only one on that list would be the nighttime driving. This past year has been a lot more difficult.
So that's something we may want to test.
Yeah.
And see if we want to do something about that. So we could supply the body with some vitamin A and see how your body responds.
Absolutely.
And I'm not sure that it would reverse it in any way, but it may stop it from getting worse
Right.
at this time. And then vitamin A is something, just so we know, it's not something we prescribe very willy-nilly or easily. So if somebody else had these signs and symptoms, you wouldn't just go, oh, here, friend, like you should take this, because vitamin A can be toxic at high doses, and also for women of childbearing ages can be very problematic, as it can cause birth defects. So we don't give it to anybody else.
Right.
Just so you know. So, but where you're not in childbearing years,
thankfully,
I think that we might be okay to go ahead with that one. And so we'll just kind of keep plowing through these and we'll point them out as we go. And so you don't have a B6 mutation or a CBS mutation, which is really nice because that plays a role in feel-good brain chemicals. And the CBS plays a role in ammonia being in the brain and sulfur conversion. So you don't have one of those. And people who have this will tend to be a lot more anxious. They'll have a lot more digestive issues, headaches, sinus issues, things like that. So you don't have those ones. ACCT. Okay. So you do have an actual double MTHFR, which is kind of nice. Did you know that, or did you suspect?
No, but you know what, Jenna, ever since I heard you speak, something resonated within me, and I was so interested to see if I had the MTHFR gene.
Okay. Yeah. So you do have an MTHFR. So what this means is, and I think it's a CT. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to double
Yeah,
check on this.
absolutely. Yeah.
CT. Okay. So that's what I thought. You have you can have two, right?
Mhm.
You can have the 1298C, 667T. Of those two, you can have one of the two of each, right? So what you have is you have one of each of these, okay? But you have the lesser of evils of both of them,
Oh, that's good.
which is kind of nice. So you have both. So what this is going to possibly equate for you is somewhere between a 35 to 50, 60% reduction in your ability to make active folate.
Wow. Okay.
So what this means is for people that experience this, the way that I kind of describe it is you have folate, right? And folate is your non-active form. So the way Clark Kent needs a phone booth to turn into Superman, to take the riffraff out, and also to make the city happy. So folate needs an enzyme. And so this is where the deficiency in is MTHFR reductase, that enzyme, is a little lower. And so you're not converting the folate into active folate. And so you're not binding to like these, when it goes like this, there's actually 5 binding sites on here. They're called methyl groups. And the methyl groups bind to excess hormones in your body. They bind to pesticides, toxins like heavy metals, organophosphates, like all kinds of stuff, right? And they carry them out of your body. And then also they go on to make feel-good brain chemicals. That's what folate does. It's part of that pathway. And so we can see with people with this, they'll have potentially more hormonal issues. They'll have a little bit more mental, emotional issues, more like anxiety, more depression, that kind of stuff. So this can be playing a factor in those roles. And the other thing too, I'm wondering, Catherine, is there any history in your family of heart attack or stroke?
Yes, my grandfather died with a massive heart attack.
What age do you think?
He was 40 years old.
40.
He was 40.
Huh. So that right there is this right there.
Ah.
Yeah. So basically, remember I told you there's a bumper, right, in the way? So basically the bumper, if you're not getting through that pathway, it's going to turn into something else. So folate is supposed to go on to make something called cysteine. And cysteine goes on to make something called glutathione, which is your #1 antioxidant in the body. So those things are supposed to, it's a healthy pathway, right? So if it can't get converted to that, what it does is it goes the other direction and it turns into homocysteine. And homocysteine will build up in the blood vessels and cause plaques and cause atherosclerosis, right? Which will lead to heart and stroke. So this is very highly indicated in heart disease and stroke. Which is amazing, right? So my father also died at the age of 53 with this.
Oh my God.
So what's wild about this is that it's not necessarily you have a genetic marker like a BRCA gene for breast cancer, or you have a genetic marker that says you're going to have a heart attack or stroke. It's not like that. It's that you have these little factors in your epigenetics that need attention and care.
Right.
So that the inevitability of them doesn't turn into that. Does that make sense?
Prevention.
Prevention, totally. So that's huge. And then the other thing that this plays a role in, just out of curiosity, do you have any history of cervical dysplasia or abnormal pap tests?
I do, yes. I had abnormal pap test when I was younger.
Okay, so this also plays a role in that. And it can also play a role in miscarriages and also no, mostly miscarriages. So essentially, folate is, its role is, it plays a huge role in DNA dividing and cells regenerating and creating. And so that's why it plays a role in miscarriage, because if you don't have enough folate, you're not properly dividing and growing cells, right? And that's what a baby is.
Yeah.
Dividing and growing cells. So, and also with cervical dysplasia, it's wild, but B12 and B9 are highly implicated in reversal of cervical dysplasia. Most healthcare professionals think that it's only it's only HPV that causes cervical dysplasia, but it's actually has quite a bit to do with that dividing of cells and DNA, right?
Oh, amazing.
In that kind of moist environment that allows for cellular growth and turnover in, like, if you think of a petri dish, it's like an environment that's like moist, that's why cells grow in it, right?
Right.
As opposed
Right.
to a dry desk. It's kind of like
Right.
that. So
Exactly.
so it makes a difference in the environment. So yeah, so that's huge. So what we're going to do with you with that is we are going to give you some activated, we're going to keep the non-active folates out of the diet. So
Okay.
that's going to be like things like vitamin waters, protein powders, multivitamins, vitamins you get off the shelf, fortified milks and cereals and breads, anything that says folate that doesn't have an L5 MTHF after it,
Okay.
you don't want.
Okay. One second. I got to write that down real quick. Sorry. So not, so anything that says folate, say that again.
Oh, that doesn't have an L5 MTHF after it. You don't want it.
So I do want anything that says L5 MTHF, but anything other than that, stay away.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Everything else, stay away. I'm just wondering about my protein powder. It has folate, but I don't think it has L5 MTHF.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And so something that I was going to kind of talk to you about a little bit is something called something called static
yeah.
in the body. So our body is a closed system.
Yeah.
So what that means is that it's like a snow globe. So it when things come in, you're supposed to have janitors or whatnot to bag up the trash and to carry it out the door and take it out back, right? So when we don't have things like methyl groups, those things that bind to toxins and pesticides and plastics and xenoestrogens and all that fun stuff, we don't have those things getting out of the body. And so what that equates to is it's creating static in the body. And the way that I describe static is, imagine you have an office and you're just sitting there in your office peacefully doing your job, but now all of a sudden 10 people that aren't supposed to be there all of a sudden show up and start like picking up your stapler or like putting things on your desk or playing with the photocopier or doing whatever. It would just be like chaos and just like, what is going on all of a sudden? There's this overwhelm. That's what it's like when you don't have the things in the body that are supposed to bind to the little particles that are the snow globe and carry them out so that it can be a peaceful environment inside of you. And then this can lead to things like anxiety, depression, overwhelm, feelings that need like OCD feelings, because you can't control your internal environment. It feels chaotic. You need to control the outside environment and things need to be a certain way. So that's kind of an interesting thing. So just wondering if any of those kind of ring a bell for you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially, I find the last few years, even more so, is, the mood peaks and valleys. And of course, mental health, runs in both sides of my family, right? From a depression perspective. So I'm always very conscientious of that and always make sure that I get outside and I'm exercising and walking and doing all those things that when I start to feel that way. But it's funny when you say about like things that you can control, because when I do feel overwhelmed, right? And we all go through it, it's for me, it's like cleaning my house and my yard, making sure my plants are good and, they're all weeded, because then that makes me feel like, and again, that makes perfect sense, because sometimes I think to myself, like, why, like, you're going to spend all this time cleaning the house and then, a day later it's going to be disastrous anyways. But for me, it makes me feel like I've accomplished something, right? And it's like that calming that chaos down. So thank you, because yes, I would love to be able to calm the chaos, the static down of your subject.
Yeah. And so what I've noticed with a lot of patients is that once we address some of these things that would create static inside the body, their external need for things to be in order or to be a certain way, or for people to act a certain way, or whatever it might be, literally goes away. Like, whereas before, if there was crumbs on the counter, it would really bother them and they need it to be a certain way. Well, now it's like, well, whatever, there's crumbs on the counter, it's fine.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of really neat to watch that transformation for people.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So that's your MTHFR gene mutation. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to supply your body with the activated forms And we're going to also give in a couple of other little cofactors. So B vitamins don't work by themselves, they work in synergy. And so we're going to do that. And maybe what we'll do is we'll just kind of pop down and take a look at that image.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
So
wow.
this is kind of like the pathways, the body, right? And so you can see you've got a few little exclamation marks here. So you can see if this is going this way and it leads into this, so whatever isn't getting made over here also isn't getting made over here, right? Because if you're not making it at this stage, it's not going on to help make what's supposed to be made over here. So this is how the constellation of you as a human starts to show up. So this is where we change the model of medicine, where it's no longer about this problem, this symptoms, this treatment. It's about this all works together holistically. And this is the concert that's going on inside of your body. And this is either in harmony and creating well-being, or it's creating static and problems, right? So we can see how there's a couple markers here along the way where it's going to be creating some problems. And again, this is your folate. This one is your B12. They recycle each other. They help each other. We have some over here with estrogen metabolism. They play a role in that as well. Choline over here actually goes back this way and recycles B12 and also B9. So if choline's not working either, that's not getting made either. So all of it together plays together. So we're going to go back up and see where that all kind of comes into play for you. Okay, so we know that we have the folate one. We're going to address it. This one is choline, and choline plays a role in the liver. So it plays a role in fatty liver disease, and it plays a role in liver being able to process and package hormones. It plays a role also in brain and memory function. So I'm just wondering like how your brain and memory might be functioning.
Some days really great, and then other days it's like, wow. um, yeah, like some days it feels like brain fog, right? And sometimes and again, you always knowing that I'm in perimenopause and I've got the whole hormonal imbalance thing happening, and I've been working on that for about 2.5 years. This is going to be a game changer for me in all of this, because I had alluded to you before we start the call, just having a period every 2 weeks now, and I'm doing all the things that, classic textbook that I should be doing to help my hormones. I can't seem to get ahead of it. I just can't seem to get it regulated. So now I understand why, as we start going through some of the stuff, it's making sense to me, Jenna. So brain fog, absolutely. It's been brain fog, but it's funny because you lump it into, it's got to be part of this whole perimenopause thing, but liver also controls hormones, right? And then seeing this, it's like, okay, this is so
it starts to make sense, as opposed to like shooting in the dark and going, okay, well, everybody that has hormonal issues should take this, or they should take that. Instead, it like takes the blinders off, and you can actually see specifically like what your body needs and why it's not working the way it should be working. So basically what we would do is we would supply your body with some choline in the idea that that will help with the fats in the liver and emulsify fats and allow them to package hormones better, transport, and then also that will go to the brain and give you some choline, phosphatidylcholine, for the brain cells and brain functioning and brain fog and memory as well. So what I do is I have one supplement that has all of these in them that are in the active form, which is awesome. What's really cool, just for fun side note, is if anybody ever had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is usually picked up randomly because they went in for something else, and then the doctor's like, oh, on your scan you had a fatty liver, do you drink? No. Choline can actually reverse fatty liver disease, which is really amazing, because once something happens in the body, usually it's harder to kind of reverse it. But when you administer choline, which is a nutrient, it helps, which is just super amazing. All right, so the next one. So what we didn't really talk about, Catherine, just but I think you already kind of got a handle on it. This is your variant, this little one here, this column. And then these are the risk variants that you could potentially have. So if we look here, there's an AA, and then you look over here and there's no AA. So you don't have this MTHFR. But we look here, we see AG. Oh, there's an AG. So you do have sorry, you don't have the MTR, but you have the MTHFR.
Yeah.
And we look here, okay, and you have the FUT2 one as well. So what does this mean? This means that body is not transporting B12 as well as it would like to. So let's just go take a quick peek at that photo, that image. Okay. So B12. So we're going to have a problem with intestinal absorption of your B12, and we're also going to have a problem with utilization of it. So even though it gets transported and put into the body, just being able to utilize it. So that means actual receptors for B12 are going to be a little downregulated. So what we do with that is we flood the body with more in hopes that the body will take in more of what it needs, right?
Okay.
And it usually works pretty well, but we also do it in the active form and make sure that you're not getting the non-active form. Let's take a quick look while we're still down here at these other, and we'll go over them. So vitamin D, here's your pathway. You have sunlight. Sunlight synthesizes into vitamin D. It's activated in the body and then transported to the cells. So your synthesis in your body, so like sun coming into your body and making you feel all the things that vitamin D would feel and do in your body, may not be happening for you. I'm wondering if in the winter time, if you get kind of low mood, a little less motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. I find if I get outside, just being out in the woods for me is my grounding, but yeah, absolutely. And I've been taking vitamin D drops as well too, 5,000 I use every day now for probably the last year and a half.
Yeah.
But yeah, isn't that interesting though? I mean, still taking it under the tongue, but it's still not synthesizing properly.
Yeah, no, for you, it's the synthesis. Sun, your transport is fine. So if you're taking vitamin D drops, you're still transporting that active form into your cells. So
okay.
That's perfect.
But it's from the sun. It's where it's not.
Did you notice that when you started taking the vitamin D about a year and a half ago that you noticed a difference in your kind of mood and motivation? And yeah, so this is
absolutely
huge for you. Yeah. And so for you, regardless of summer or not, you're going to want to continue taking that 5,000 IU vitamin D all the way through because you're not converting that sun as well anyway.
Wow, incredible.
And then there was the vitamin A one. So your BCMO1 converts to active retinol. Yours isn't necessarily converting. Again, might be playing a role in night blindness for you.
Yeah.
And then we talked about the B12 omegas. Yours are fine. This is a really funny one that some people should probably know about, but a lot of people try to eat omegas to be healthy, and they eat it in the form of flax and chia seeds and hemp seeds and things like that. So when you take in flax and chia and hemp and walnuts and whatever, it has to be converted, and then it turns in the body, and then it turns into omega-3. So some people have a block in this one, so they're not converting those omegas anyway, and so they shouldn't be eating those things that they think are healthy. So this is like a huge revelation, because you know the interwebs and people say omegas are great for everybody, and it's like, well, yes, in the right form, in the right way, for the right people. Yeah.
Right.
So,
okay, well, that's good to know, because I do eat a lot of chia seeds and a lot of flaxseed in my smoothie, so that's good.
Yeah, because you're one of those people that's trying to be healthy, right?
Right.
But again, not everybody is going to need things. This is why this is so perfect, because it tells you what you need, not blanket statement what's healthy for everybody.
Exactly.
You don't have a downregulation in your serotonin pathway, which is really nice. So that plays a role in digestion and mood.
Ooh, look at the dopamine. Ooh.
And we do have a little bit in the dopamine. Okay, so we're going to go take a look at those and see what we see. Okay, so that was kind of your B12, your folate, and your choline. We're going to supply you with, again, a comprehensive B vitamin that's going to take care of those. Okay. You do have a downregulation in your vitamin C and your zinc pathway. What about you? Do you have white spots on your fingernails?
I don't.
Okay, do you currently take zinc?
I do.
Yeah, okay. Do you ever remember a time when you had white spots?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. And were you a child that had ear infections, throat infections, nose infections, sinus infections?
Oh, I constantly had bronchitis and sore throats. And yeah, it was just, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that is linked to your downregulation in your zinc pathway, right? So zinc plays a huge role in immune function in ears, nose, and throat. So whenever we see recurrent ear, nose, and throat infections, I will go and I'll say, look, we need to do your genetics. And sure enough, we'll see they have a downregulation in their zinc pathway in their genetics.
Well, and it's interesting too, Jen, if you don't mind me saying, because of the ear thing, because for the last couple of years, I've had this, my right ear, it gets so itchy and I'm constantly scratching my right ear, which then leads to irritation, which then leads to, my gland being swollen here, which then leads to the sinus because everything gets plugged up and it's constantly the right ear. So I'm wondering if I'm just not taking, well, obviously between the vitamin C and everything else that's going on,
How much zinc are you taking?
just one zinc a day.
Do you know if it's a 15 milligram, a 20-minute, or a 30?
I think it's a 30, Jenna.
Okay, yeah, 30 is good. We want to have somewhere between 30, like roughly around 30. A lot of people will be taking zinc, but it's like a 10 milligram or something. It's just not enough. But yeah, around a 30 would be good.
I just started taking that again about a month ago. So
Okay. And the other thing is that the form of it. So I like piclinate, Piclonate, piclinate. So I'll put that in your.
yeah, absolutely. And I'll check what I have. And then if it's not that, then yeah, no. Okay. Excellent.
Can you see this when I'm doing it?
I can, yeah.
Oh, okay. I just wondered. Zinc. Okay, awesome. All right, so we're gonna go back to the stuff. So you don't have a vitamin E. So I'm gonna take that. If I don't remember to take that off of your prescription, just remind me, you don't have to get it. CG. Okay. You do have like a little hemochromatosis marker here, but usually when people just have one, it's a recessive one. And so that means that it won't actually cause any problems for you. Do you have anybody in your family that has active hemochromatosis that you know of?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
I'm not really worried about that one for right now. There's your omega-1. That was fine, which is good. And then we're going down here and we're going to see, there's your patient variant, risk variant. We're going to see here, this is huge. This could be a potential reason why the hormones are not really working, why there's a little bit more static in the body. Do you have inflammation, like joints or any kind of arthritis, pain, anything like that? No. So you take really good care of yourself. So your transformation may be a little smaller, more subtle, because you're already doing a lot of the things that are really helping you in this way. I think you
Thank God, because otherwise I'd be in worse shape than what I probably am.
Yeah, I think your body intuitively knew like what it needed. And you're just really smart. You've been doing this. Okay, SOD and GSTP. So superoxide dismutase and glutathione peroxidase. Okay. Superheroes in the body. So what they do is they are the janitors. They go through and they clean everything. And so what's really interesting about this one is when these are downregulated, you're going to have more static in the body. You're going to have more things floating around, causing more inflammation. It's going to make it harder for your hormones to actually do what they're supposed to do because glutathione plays a role in estrogen metabolism. And so one of the things it does, you have 3 pathways for estrogen. You have a neutral pathway, you have a bad pathway, and you have a good one. And methylation plays a role in this as well. Remember the methyl groups that were on that folate? So it all plays together. So essentially glutathione, whenever we see somebody have the bad estrogens going down this way, we give NAC or glutathione and it pushes that estrogen back this way so it can go down the good pathway. And we also provide methyl groups to methylate the excess estrogens that aren't being beneficially used, right? So where you have just a little bit lower potential for having glutathione in your system, And as well with that folate pathway, remember how I said folate turns to cysteine?
Right.
Cysteine goes on to contribute to glutathione. So you may be having a lower amount there as well. So you kind of have a little bit of a double whammy of lower amounts of glutathione in the system. And glutathione is your number one antioxidant. It's the number one thing that like keeps your body humming, clean, awesome, on the good track, right? The way that I kind of describe this to people is it's like a car that had a different paint put on it that wasn't supposed to, that would lead to it rusting more readily or more easily.
Mhm.
So without doing this testing, we wouldn't know that. And so when you get older, 40, 50, 60, all of a sudden your car is rusting and you're like, wait, what? Why? Um, and that rust is akin to things like cancers, right? So if you think of if you think of a car and you think of the rust on the edge of it, it's this malformation and bubbling of stuff that's growing there that shouldn't be growing there, right? That's
Mhm.
what rust is, oxidative stress. And so this is kind of what can happen in the body when our number one antioxidants aren't working properly. And so if we know this, we can see this. And so we can act preventatively. And so instead of leaving that car out in the rain and mistreating it and partying and doing all those things people do to their cars or their bodies to mistreat them, we take care of it. We put it in the garage. We make sure it has the right temperature. And we also make sure it has the right kind of wax and stuff like that so that it doesn't rust. And so I guess what I'm trying to say, Catherine, without saying it, is because I don't have anything to do with diagnosing cancers or anything like that, but you can see how
Yeah.
if these systems aren't working properly, the inevitability is that rusting,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
what we're essentially doing is we're turning back that clock and going, okay, let's prevent this from happening in the future, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to say something here because I want the audience that's listening to this to understand this too, Jenna. This clears up so much frustration for me. And I'm going to tell you why. I had a couple months ago, I had tried out a new osteopath in the Miramichi. Because of course I tried different practitioners to help my clients as well too. And she had said to me, she said, your immune system is struggling. And I'm like, what? It can't be because I'm doing all these things, right? I'm exercising, I'm eating good, I'm taking care of myself. And then just recently as well too, I went to see my homeopath and he said, geez, Catherine, he said, I don't understand why. He said, your immune system seems to be struggling again because I have 7 canker sores and, this hormonal imbalancing that's going on. And it just, yeah. And I walked out of his office that day and I was so frustrated because I'm like, okay, I'm doing all the right things, but still my immune system is struggling. Why?
Mhm.
Now I know. So thank
Yeah.
you.
So, okay. So like you have a double whammy on your picture, right?
Right.
Actually like a triple whammy. So let's put it to you this way. So thanks so much for sharing that information because it makes the picture come clearer for me. So basically what's happening is you have a harder time, and I'm sure we're going to see a little bit lower on what your immune system might be doing as well. Actually, let's go to that right now. We're going to take a quick
Okay.
peek. Okay. IL-6. Yeah, there it is. And I bet you have a CRP, and you do. Okay.
Wow.
So IL-6 and CRP, that's going to increase your propensity to have immune dysregulation. It's going to increase your propensity to have more inflammation. So whenever we think of the body, we just have to think of the body in terms of armies, right?
Mhm.
So I want you to just picture this. Okay, you have this army, and each little group of the army has its own job to do, right? So you have a camp over here, and like they're all the same army, but this camp over here takes care of, I don't know, gathering wood. This camp over here takes care of getting water. This camp takes care of like building stuff, and this camp takes care of like defense, right? So
Mhm.
they're all part of the same one. What's happening is your defense ones through the zinc and the vitamin D downregulation, they aren't there. Right? So
They've
now,
gone on vacation.
right? So now this camp over here, so this camp over here, your GSTP and your SOD, they're not there either, right? And so then what's happening is, and then you had the folate one too, which is also plays a role in all of that stuff. So now you've got like one camp, right?
Mhm.
Now they have to do all the jobs of those. So you're wondering why your immune system is struggling because
Yeah.
it doesn't have the resources that it needs to actually be topped up and humming and functioning because your body's resources are doing the jobs that the other parts aren't doing.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to supply those parts with new workers, new recruits. And then this part can go back to doing the job that it's supposed to do. And then your system should start to synthesize and harmonize and actually work synergistically the way it's supposed to, with everybody doing their jobs where they're supposed to be doing them. Does that make sense?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mind blowing, right? Like when you
Mind blowing.
actually
Absolutely mind blowing.
it's like, oh my God, okay, I see
Yeah.
it. It's as opposed to like, oh, your immune system isn't working. Let's give you some medicinal mushrooms because they're supposed to increase immune function. Yeah, they are. But if your body doesn't have its ability to get rid, like its antioxidants to get rid of the toxins that are coming in, and you're constantly being bombarded with insults, then your
Yeah.
immune system isn't going to get topped up. It's just not. Plain and simple.
Amazing.
And then of course your hormones can't regulate and all that fun stuff. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to supply your body with some glutathione and some salt. Okay. And that should help that function. That should take the weight off, because again, if you had toxins in your system that your body can't bind to, now your body's got to fight those. Your immune system's got to fight those, right? So your body's immune system's fighting internally. It's not fighting externally, colds and things. And so it's all about resources. So we're just going to top you up with the resources you need, so everybody's doing their job.
Fantastic.
Okie dokie. So the next one that we're gonna see here is COMT, catecholamine methyltransferase, COMT. So this is your enzyme to break down estrogens. So your body may not be breaking down estrogens the way that it should or needs to. So can you give me a little synopsis on what your hormones have been doing? Like what the other practitioners that have worked with you, like have you done hormone testing? Have they said your estrogen's too high? Is it too low? Is it what?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've been all over the map, Jenna. And so when I first started down my journey, to thermography, it was because I had a lot of hormone influence happening in my breast tissue, right? So very high levels of estrogen.
Okay.
Testosterone was really low. My adrenals were suffering severely, but again, I was in the corporate world. I was working, long hours, traveling, all that good stuff, high levels of stress. That it's always about estrogen, right? So, and of course, the estrogen progesterone ratio, right? And all of that stuff that's happening. So it's constantly all over the board. And just when you think that 1 month I have like a normal period and my breasts aren't ready to fall off my skin, it feels like, then it's this all back again. And it's like, okay, what did I do differently this month? Right. So then you kind of go through the food journal and all those good things. And you're like, okay, well, I'm exercising, I'm doing all the right things. Why is it still doing this? So for example, let me give you the most recent example because it's getting worse instead of better, unfortunately. So over the last 2 months, and this is the first week, knock on wood, that I haven't had it, but my breasts have been so sore, so sore, beyond anything that I've experienced, other than when you're pregnant and after you have a baby and how sore they are that you can't walk across the floor because just a little bit of movement makes them so sore. And so I will still continue to do my rebounding to get my lymphatics going, and they hurt like hell, and I'm holding them and it's like, oh my gosh, but I'm still doing it, right? Because I know it's good for them too. So but I know it's the estrogen flip-flopping and then having periods every 2 weeks now. It's just all over the map, right? And then there's, there's night sweats, right? That you wake up and all of a sudden it's your hot flashes and things that you just seem like you have under control. Then all of a sudden it's just all back again. So I've been doing all the right things, or, textbook, doing all the right things, but not understanding my own specific body and how it was working. And this is why I came to see you, to figure out what the heck is going on.
Doesn't sound like fun. I'm sorry you're experiencing that. So I have a theory, and the theory is that the night sweats, that women are experiencing sometimes, can be caused by the off dumping of the estrogens. So we often think night sweats happen because the estrogen goes low, but once you're going through menopause, you're dumping off estrogens because you don't need them anymore. Okay. But if you're dumping them off and your body can't metabolize them, you can't break them down, you can't get them out of your system, what does your body need to do that? It needs to dilate your blood vessels so that you can clear it out of your blood vessels, right? So the theory is that we should be able to bind to it and carry it out of the body. It should cause you less problems. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you something to bind to it. So a lot of people will give indole 3-carbinol or DIM or I3C or stuff like that. You don't have a CBS mutation, which means that you don't have a sulfur problem. So people who have sulfur problems can't take those things. They don't know it.
Yeah.
And most practitioners don't know that those people shouldn't be taking those things because they haven't done their genetics and don't know. But for you could take those things. Have you taken those things in the past? Did they do?
I have, yeah. Indocarbonyl 3 I have. And right now I started about 3 weeks ago, Dr. Lorna Vanderhee, she's got a great product. It's called EstroSmart.
Yep.
And it's got your DIM and indocarbonyl 3 and your turmeric and all that stuff in it as well too.
Yep. Okay.
And that helps to, help.
How is that going?
Good. I mean, like I said, this is my first week. So I've taken it for 3 weeks. I mean, normally they say you got to take it for at least 28 days. So I have my 3 weeks in. And this week, my breasts finally are not sore to the point where I want to cry and touch them. So yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So we do have a couple of other things available to us as well if we need them.
Yeah.
We do have something called myomin, and we also have something called calcium D-glucarate, which can bind to your estrogens and take them out of your body as well in different timing in your cycle. So we may be adding those in at another point in time.
Okay.
So we can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
I'm just realizing we have probably about 6 more minutes. Maybe. No, I guess no, 11 more minutes. Yeah. So I just want to touch base on the things I think that are most important right now. Sure. And then if there's anything else we need to go over further, we can at another point in time. Let's see here. Calm to executive function, serotonin. So generate better executive function than normal, stressful environments, struggles. Yeah, okay. So this is the same. So COMT, again, is your catecholamine methyltransferase, but it's like a sink, right? In the sink, you're going to have dopamine, you're going to have adrenaline, and you're going to have estrogen. And so what this is saying is that your sink runs a little slower. And so that means you're going to have higher levels of estrogen, higher levels of dopamine, which means that you're going to be able to focus a little bit better and get quite a bit done and have motivation to do things. But it might be harder for you, and then you're going to have more adrenaline, but it might be harder for you to relax, like to actually just stop and like get off the hamster wheel and like just stop doing and just be, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm like, now that I'm saying this and I know you, I'm like, yeah, there it is. That makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so that motivation and adrenaline is going to be really high, but it takes its toll on your body. And like you said, you had to deal with your adrenals before, and your adrenals are also going to pull on hormones and whatnot. So this is not a bad thing, but we can temper it a little bit so that you can come down a little bit.
That would be lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. So the 2 things that we're going to do for you for that one would be the 2 things that make your COMT go a little bit faster is a little bit of magnesium and a little bit of SAMe. So we're going to look into doing that for you. Okay. I'm just going to write this down. So that is one thing. Other than that, stimulant sensitivity. So for you, you also won't be able to process your stimulants as well. So things like caffeine are going to be a no-no for you.
Yeah,
so
I don't drink it anyway. So
yeah, things that have any caffeine in them. So that even includes things like kombucha, things like green tea. So you can, you can have a little bit here and there. It's no big deal, but just not all the time, not every day, that kind of thing.
Oh my goodness. You know what? Oh my gosh. I'm a big green tea drinker because I love my millennial green tea.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not going to be terrible for you or anything like that, but it will have quite a bit of caffeine in it, and that you aren't able to really process caffeine through your body. So that's going to take up resources, right? Because you now have to use resources to take care of that.
And I don't want to do that. So yeah, that's fine. Okay. Now that I know.
Sorry. I know. I get to be the big meanie all the time and tell people
No,
like,
not at all. This is great information. Again, you do all the right things, thinking you're doing the right thing, right? Like with the green tea, because it's got such high antioxidants and stuff, but not so good for my body. So
not for yours. Okie dokie. And then this one, brain-derived neurotropic factor. This plays a role. This one, and do you have the pawn one as well? Let me just go take a quick look at that. No, you don't. Okay. So brain-derived neurotropic factor is kind of the thing that keeps the brain functioning and healthy. Like if you think of the brain, the fats in the brain and them being really good and healthy and supple and memory and all this stuff working really well, this is kind of what this does. So future for someone who doesn't take care of this, doesn't supply their body with good fats and doesn't take care of their like antioxidant status and that sort of thing, the brain starts to become a little more defunct down the road, potential for like dementias and things like that, right?
right. Okay.
So this is important to, you're already doing all the good things, you know, you're already like drinking your green tea and stuff like that. So you can still drink it, but just not maybe every day, all day. And then adding in good fats, getting enough sleep, exercise, antioxidants, taking care of that GSTP and SOD pathway. So your antioxidant status is really high is really good. And then, yeah, so that's kind of that one. CTACACAG. So we have just a little dopamine receptor downregulation, but I'm not worried about that for you because you have the COMT on the other side, which makes the dopamine high. So these two actually probably work well together, so that you can focus, but you're not obsessive.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're okay with that. Again, here is a cannabis one where you would have a greater propensity towards addiction to cannabis if you were to smoke it regularly.
Never tried it, so I'm okay there.
Okay, good. So there you go. So you're good. Yeah. So I wouldn't because you probably will become addicted to it.
Yeah.
This IL-6 is the one we were talking about before about immune system. And what this does is, again, we have a Th1 immune system, a Th2. This one is autoimmune. This one is more external. And when we have an IL-6, we have a propensity to go over towards the troops, go into the autoimmune side of things. So if we start to see autoimmune pictures show up and we start to see a lot of inflammation or arthritis or even autoimmune digestive diseases and things like that, somebody has an IL-6, it's like, okay, what we need to do there is we need to get that immune system to go back towards the Th1, and we have supplements that we can do that with.
Okay.
For you, I'm not too worried about it right now because you're not exhibiting a ton of signs of this, I don't think.
No.
And if we remove that static, then the immune system doesn't have anything to fight. Right. So that's how we kind of take care of this side. But if people have more problems after we do that still, then we target the immune system specifically. And you do have something called a CRP, which means that you're more likely to have inflammatory reactions to things or inflammation in your system. So for people like you and that don't have a CBS mutation, meaning you convert sulfur properly, you could take things like curcumin and like turmeric active form, and resveratrol is another one. So those are going to be things that ensure that your body's inflammatory processes don't get ignited. This is something interesting, just so you know. If you ever go to the doctor, don't take Cipro, CIPRO. It's an antibiotic. Okay. So people who take Cipro, there's a small subset of the population that can have Achilles tendon rupture. And you would be one of those people.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So just say no to Cipro when you go there. The other thing too is you have a propensity possibly towards more tendon and ligamentous injury. I'm wondering if that may be true. Like if you find when you're exercising or doing things, if you injure your tendons or your ligaments or.
Well, I go to my osteopath about, once every 5 to 6 weeks because I have one right hip that every time I'm exercising, I always seem to do something to it. not necessarily a ligament or a tendon, but I'll be more mindful of that, Jenna.
Okay. So yeah, where you have a vitamin C downregulation,
Uh-huh.
that's going to play a role because vitamin C plays a role in collagen, right? Collagen plays a role in tendon and ligament. So you're going to, if you're somebody who decides that you want to take collagen to help your ligaments and tendons, that's great. You just have to pay attention to see if your ligaments and tendons become more lax or if they and cause you more pain, because sometimes people with this will have more lax ligaments and then it causes more pain because when the ligaments become looser, their muscles have to tighten.
Gotcha.
Because
Well, that
keep
makes sense
yeah.
because I'm very flexible. So I've always been told that I have very loose like ligaments and stuff
Okay.
like that. Very, very flexible. Like
Okay. So
crazy.
yeah, for you, collagen and things like that might not actually be the best
Mm,
idea because you would potentially be making your ligaments more lax.
right.
But nutrients, possibly vitamin C would be a good idea,
Okay.
just to supply the tissues
Yeah.
with what they need. So that's that one. We just have a couple more minutes and then we're going to have to close up for now. So we talked about the C-reactive protein salt sensitivity. Do you have high blood pressure or low blood pressure?
I've always had great blood pressure.
Okay. So if your blood pressure ever changes,
Yeah.
meaning that if it's too low, you can increase it with salt because you
Okay.
have a little bit of a sensitivity to salt, which will increase your blood pressure.
Okay.
If your blood pressure is too high, you can lower your salt and it will likely lower it for you. Not
Okay.
everybody, their blood pressure is not always directly linked to salt.
Gotcha.
Yours may be.
Mine is okay.
There's another caffeine one saying no.
HDL.
And you have a tendency to have lower good cholesterol. So again, you're going to want to put in the good cholesterols.
Okay.
But you do have an enhanced response to good cholesterol via exercise.
Hmm.
So I think intuitively you already kind of knew that.
Well, it's a good thing I'm exercising.
Yeah. So you do have an actual lactose intolerance.
Yeah.
So it showed right up here on your genes. It says, yep, lactose intolerance. So you probably already knew that.
Yeah, actually casein, I was told casein. So I've avoided all milk products for the last 3 years.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So definitely this one doesn't test for casein, but if it did, it will probably show up, and definitely lactose is there as well. So we actually got to the end of it, which is really awesome. So that's kind of everything. What I'm going to do is I'll kind of talk to you a little bit more though in depth about the estrogens
Yes.
in your body at another point in time, maybe just for 10 or 15 minutes. We'll go over that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of it for today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you your customized report with everything in it of what you need to do and when and how and all that fun stuff.
Excellent.
How do you feel? Did you learn anything?
Oh my gosh, absolutely mind blowing. Mind blowing, has given me the answers that I need because yeah, as I shared with you, there was a little bit of frustration there because I've been doing, a lot of research and, it's just textbook classic things that I'm trying and doing over the last 2.5 years specifically. And, just not getting to that full potential, right, of where I know my body can be. So this is mind blowing. I am going to walk away from this and look at the file again. I can't wait to work with you, and we'll do another update for people after I do all this stuff for the next couple of months, and then we'll do another check-in to see how I'm feeling and my changes in my body. I'll do a before and after photo as well too, because I want to see how my body's going to shift.
Oh my gosh, Catherine, I started doing before and after photos for people because once I started seeing the the transformation in people, like the beingness, their being changes. It's unbelievable. And so I started doing that because I was like, oh my gosh, like you can see it. You can see their change in their body and their being, and and the sense of well-being that comes for people is just, I think that's the most beautiful part, is that a well-being is just a silent being that goes through life and is on purpose and on their path, and they're in touch with their passion, and their self-esteem issues aren't getting in the way, that's a well-being. And that's where a lot of these changes come in, and I just see people start to rise, and they just connect with who they are, and they go on their path towards what they're here to give the world. And I just feel like if we can do that intergenerationally,
Yeah.
it would be so amazing, right? Because then we just, each individual gets a little healthier, and then our society becomes a little healthier, and we're not making really bad decisions anymore.
It's a ripple effect, right? And then we're all, because we're all so connected. So right after this call, I'm going to go take a photo. I'm going to dump it in my folder on my laptop. So we're going to create this little journey, and I want to be able to share this with people because my mind is completely blown today. Absolutely.
Awesome, my darling. Okay, well, I love working with you. It's so much fun, and we'll talk more soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Jenna.
Bye for now.